Christmas is a time, a season that should bring great joy, festivities, should bring great thanksgiving because of all of God's commitments to us. As I mentioned on Christmas Day, very sad that most people probably in the world today celebrate Christmas without Christ. They do not know Him. They do not know the provision of His life for us. Without Him, we have no life. You've heard me make the statement several times, the people walking around us are the walking dead. They have no life. Because if Christ is not there, there is very little value to what life is as we think it could be. It's only a temporary situation. When you're with Christ, it's eternal. It never ends. It goes on forever and ever. On the 25th, we celebrated the birth of Christ. In actuality, it came sometime during the darkness of the night. We don't know the exact timing. We're not even sure of the exact date. But the event, yes. And so it has been set that we would remember this on the 25th of December each year, beginning a new life. It seems like it would be at the end of life because it comes at the end of the calendar year of human. And yet it is really the beginning. And perhaps it comes just prior to the new year because then we have something to bring into the new year which is of great hope to us, provision of God. Yet the beauty of all that God has given to us many times is not totally grasped or understood. I want to just do something simple. I have a candle in my hand. This candle is made of some kind of a wax. I would venture to say that this particular candle is made with a very cheap, probably a counterfeit or an artificial wax. It's not really wax. But I could also have a candle that would be made with beeswax, which is very prominent in some areas of the world. And it has a greater ability than this candle. This candle could be painted, it could be hand carved, and it would look nice. But what benefit is that candle? What task does it have? It basically is useless in its condition. It has no real value. You can have 100 of them, you can have 1,000 of them, you can have 1,000,000 of them. It won't do anything for you. But when the light comes, the candle now becomes useful. It brings light. Now we're used to electricity, but yet still the candle is very, very prominent in our society. You go into a restaurant where you want to have a romantic meal, the candles will be on the table. If mom wants to have a very special meal sometime for a birthday or something, there will be candles lit. Why? Because they bring an ambience. They bring something joyful into the event that's taking place. This light, if I would put this light on the outside of this candle, it wouldn't do anything but destroy the candle. But because there's something on the inside of that candle, it now supports the light that has come. And only because of that light which is on the inside, that situation that's on the inside, does that light have life. That's human nature. We are worthless without the light. And that light only is valuable if it's coming from the inside. Out of your innermost being will come rivers of living light. And that light, according to scriptures, that light has been given to every man. And so none of us can say that we do not have what it takes. We do, because it came from God. Christ came as the light of the world. And he planted that light in you, he planted that light in me, and that light will bring forth change. In the midst of darkness, what do you have? You have light, you can see. You're not confused, you're not lost because of that light. And that symbolism is what God has given to us. And it's something, sometimes when we see something, we can grasp the meaning of it a little more clearly, because it's coming from the inside. It's not on the outside, it's from the inside. It's from that piece of wick that has been placed in the center. And Christ's Spirit was placed in you. And from it comes that source of ability and that source of hope that supports the light that he has given to us. And so remember this. Candles are not just decorative. They're speaking to us. This is why on the altar the candles are there, because they're speaking to us something very valuable for us to understand. That there's a light that can only be supported when it's got that which is within us, given by God in our creation. I'll set that aside, because that's not what I'm going to talk about. But I wanted that to be the beginning, because if we grasp this, we get this within us, it will begin to flow out. It's amazing. We've just celebrated Christmas Day. We're still in the midst of Christmas. But the assigned gospel today, weird, strange. It doesn't talk about today. It goes back to the beginning. John is the only writer of gospel that doesn't start off with the birth of Christ, the human birth of Christ. But John goes back even deeper to the beginning, not to Genesis. He goes beyond Genesis. And he shows us something that I doubt many people grasp the meaning of or see the truth in. Listen to the words that he says. In the beginning. When is the beginning? Nobody knows. Because this beginning is eternity. Always has been. Always there. In the beginning was the Word. When did the Word come? The Word was there when the beginning came. Because the word was is an indication of presence. Not coming. It's not just put there. It was there in the beginning. That Word was with God. Now again, grasp the understanding of what it's saying to us, because we see things physically. We don't see things spiritually. But he's speaking to us spiritually here, because the Word was Spirit. The Word was with God, who is Spirit. And the Word was God. Now again, the Word. If you want to do something, the first thing that causes whatever you're wanting to do to come into reality, it first comes as a thought in your mind, your ability to think. Then that thought begins to be formulated, and it comes out as what we call a word, and then an event. But it says something here so powerful if we just take time to grasp the meaning of this. What God planned in the very beginning, it came forth as word. And every word that he brought forth was realized in manifestation. This is so powerful because this book is containing the words of God. And every one of those words are real, and they will accomplish what God intended them to accomplish. When he spoke, go back to Genesis. When he spoke, he said, "Let there be light. Let there be earth. Let there be." He didn't physically do anything. He spoke reality. The word was spoken. That word was so powerful that it became what we know in reality. He spoke it, and it came forth. The word was in the beginning. The word was with God. God chose Christ to be the Word. He was the very creative Word. He was involved in every bit of creation from the very beginning. He was life-giving. He brought life to man. Remember when he formed dust into the body and then he breathed the life? Here's the life-giving Word. And the life-giving word, because when he gave us life, he didn't just give us life. Animals have life. But animals don't have the ability to have discernment. They don't have the ability to plan and to scheme or to put things together. But God, when he created us with this ability for reason. We can understand, we can grasp meaning. This was the light he gave us because he wanted us to be like him. But the Word, there have been some religious groups who would tell you, be careful what you say, because what you say will happen. Because they were taking their thoughts from here. Because when God speaks, it takes place. You can always depend, God will do what he says he will do. This is why I've focused on the fact that by his stripes you were healed, because this is what he said. You were healed. Not going to be. You were. He provided and he spoke that. He spoke life to us. He spoke hope to us. He spoke peace to us. All these things he gave us in speaking the Word. And the Word became flesh. Christ. That which was spirit became life. And we had him present with us during his lifetime on earth. The Word, the value of the Word. When you will sit down and meditate on this and let it speak to you. When I was meditating on this, I had goosebumps on my flesh because how powerful our God is. He doesn't have to scheme and plan. He doesn't have to have a generation of people behind him. Doesn't have to have machines or all the other things there. He just simply speaks. And what he speaks is done. He spoke and the earth was formed. He spoke and the heavens were there. The sun, the moon, the stars, all those things were there just because he spoke it. But he planned it out just like we have to plan. And that became Word. And he spoke that Word. And that became our life. Now John goes back to this. Because all the way back there, this was the plan of God. That Christ would come. The Word would be made flesh and dwell among us. And Christ would be the one to bring it because he was the one involved in creation. He was the one involved in giving life. He was the one who brought light to us. He gave word to us. Christ spoke. He spoke to the demons, and the demons fled. He spoke to the death, and death would flee. Just a word. That's how powerful he is and what he has given. But he has also given to us a very similar ability. We can speak words and things happen. If you don't believe it, let me call you a name and see what happens to you. You'll get angry all of a sudden. A word causes that. Has no physical ability, no physical appearance at all. Just a word. The power of a word. A word of love, compassion, can change a whole situation from anger, from fear, from loss. It brings hope. Just a word of love, compassion. This is why our words are very important, very careful. How many times I've had people promise things to me and then they would never do them. That's not God. That's not how God created. If we speak, that should become life. It should become a reality. Because that's what we have said. And those words are the means whereby life is given. Those words are what it brought to us: salvation, forgiveness. The words of Satan in the garden, when Eve received them, it destroyed. Words have power. They're very, very valuable. Most of us haven't really paid that much attention to the value, the importance, and the power that reside in the words we use. We can cause people to bow. We can cause people to get angry. We can cause so many things to happen just by words. John goes back to this because here is the beginning of Christmas. In the beginning. In the beginning was the Word. All of this was back there, all put together. But it has come into our realities today. Because that Word back then, in the beginning, in eternity, whenever that was, it's that far back, it brought into existence where we are today. And what God has promised to us. And what He will promise. What He has said will come, it will. Every portion of it. Scriptures show us that all the prophecies of the Old Testament have been fulfilled. Every word He spoke was fulfilled. It's not just something that we can pass off and forget. Well, that's okay. It just is the moment. It's just what He's saying, how He was feeling at the moment. No. When He speaks that which is of His heart. And it's intended for us. When we look at the scriptures of Paul's writings in Colossians, Ephesians, all these writings telling us who we are in Christ, what He has given to us, it belongs to us. We can reject it, yes. We can reject it. It's like with that candle. If that candle would reject the flame, it wouldn't be useful. But because it receives it, it begins to be a beneficial part of life. It shows light, gives us a direction, gives us a signal, does many things for us. In Proverbs chapter 8, verse 22, Proverbs is wisdom. This is what the book is written about, is wisdom. It says, "The Lord possessed me at the beginning of His way, before all of His works of old." God used wisdom. He had that wisdom because it was within Him. And He has given to us light and life. He gave life first, but then He gave light also, because that is our discernment, that is our wisdom, so that we can make directions, we can set course, we can see things as they are and realize this may not be today, but it will be tomorrow. Because God gave us that ability, light, the power of light. This is why the candles on the altar are light, because here is God speaking to us. The life of Christ and the life of mankind coming together for an eternity. It will not fail. It will not be lost. In a large cathedral, you'll have the high altar candles in the background, huge candles, telling us and giving us the proclamation, what God has said, what God has planned, it shall be. He kept, in the Old Testament, kept prophesying about this one that would be born in Bethlehem, and how he would be the one to take the government onto his shoulders, and how that government would not decrease but would increase. It happened. It took place. Why? Because God spoke the word, the power of the word. The power of the word brings provision, life to us. When I was growing up, in our church, we were in a Protestant church, but there was a little old lady, old. For me at that time, she was old. Today, now she was young. But she was very simple, very humble, and had a peculiar smell about her. Not offensive, but yet just different. But power. Power. Just mighty power in her because of her life of prayer and her life of faith in God. She lived in a family that was not, her husband wasn't a Christian, her children basically were not Christians, but she was. And she was a staunch, committed person that the pastor would go to for prayer because of her life. You see, we look at things so often according to the physical, according to the things that we've done. We have to go back and get what Christ has given to us. Here is our hope. Here is our provision. That candle on its own is worthless. But if that candle receives the light, it becomes beneficial because it's paying attention to that which is being given to it. It can reject it, but there are times when these candles don't work. For some reason or another, they will not accept the flame of light. And so they become useless. But when they receive it, they become a benefit to society. And this is what God has done for us. All things come into existence through Him. We can think that we are planning, think we are the ones doing it, but it's because of the power that He's placed within us that gives us the ability to bring out the things that He has given to us, the empowerment that is within us. As we bring these things into reality, we must recognize it's because of Him. He has empowered us to be able to change the darkness to light, to change the problem to a solution, to bring sadness to joy. That is within our ability by the words we speak and the hope that is written within our hearts. In the beginning was the Word. Before creation, the Word was there. We look at Genesis and we say, oh, this is the beginning. It wasn't the beginning. It was the beginning of humanity. But it was not the beginning of God. God always has been. In the beginning was the Word. In the beginning was God. Always has been there, always will be there. In Psalm 33 it says, by the word of the Lord the heavens were made, and by the breath of His word all their host. Just He spoke a word. Let there be. And there was. All that has come into our lives, it's taken scientists generations to try to analyze all these things that have made us up and made up the society, the surroundings around us in nature. still don't understand it all. And yet it came forth only in a word. How powerful that word. That he could speak for the trees. And out of that speaking for the trees came apple, orange, guava, all these different kinds of trees. And all of them different in their ability to produce the fruit. But it came from one word. One word. How powerful God is. And to grasp the meaning of this in our little simple life, how much greater he is and how much hope he plants within us to be like him. When he speaks to us, we know it will be. He will not fail us. He will not forsake us. It may seem for the moment that things aren't going to be the way they're supposed to be. But if he has so planned it, so it will be. In Hebrews chapter 1 it says, in these last days he has spoken to us in his Son, whom he appointed heir of all things, through whom also he made the world. What Christ has given to us and what he speaks to us life. He speaks to us hope. And if you go through Colossians, you go through Ephesians, you go through Philippians, you see these things that belong to us. These are ours because of him. He has given this to us. Every spiritual blessing in heavenly places. This he spoke to us. They belong to us. We should not see ourselves, as I mentioned on Christmas Day. God doesn't want us in sorrow. He doesn't want us in pain. He doesn't want us in want or need. He has provided everything for us if only we receive. If we believe, all things are possible. In him was life, and that life was the light of men. Brings hope to us. Without him, we would not be. And his placing that ability within us. How did we get electricity? Man did this? Oh no. God put the thoughts in man's heart so that he could bring forth that which we have today. And if only we know these things are hidden within us. They're treasures within us. If only we could bring them forth and let God be what God intends us to be. He is not only the true God, but he's also the living God. There's life there. He's alive. He will not fail. When you become a living soul, his life was given to you, and it became rational. Things that you would bring forth. You know that if you put this first, then the second will follow, and the third will follow. You don't put the third first. It goes according to the way that God had intended it to be. You know, and I have a hard time if I buy something and it comes in a box. I want to do it myself. And most of the time I have to start all over again and go back to the instructions. Because if you follow the instructions, it works. But the human nature, the pride that we have sometimes, we want to do it ourselves. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. I bought Janie a stationary bike for Christmas because where we are, it's hard to get out and walk and have exercise. So I got her this bike, and when I brought it home, she said, make sure you follow the instructions. I did. And it worked. You see, this is life in Christ. If we follow what he has given to us. This is what John wanted us to understand. This isn't just December 25. No, you're tapping into something that has been forever and will be forever. It will never pass away, and it will never fail. We live in a world of failure. We live in a world of despair. We live in a world of pain and sorrow. But that's not the world that God created it to be. What he's created for us and his desire for us is for the blessings, for the provision of life, and the provision of light, and the provision of joy and peace These are the things He's provided for us. Sin took it away, but Christ brought it back. But we have to be willing to accept it, and it belongs to us. When Christ went to the cross, He was there for all. He took the sins of all man, those prior and those coming in the future. He gave new life to everyone. Now we can deny it, we can reject it, but yet it's been given to us. And I have this little feeling within me, and I tell you, it's my feeling, and I'm not blaming anybody else or the Bible for it, but I think when God breathed that breath of life in us, He put something in us that cannot die, that will be drawn to Him at all times. If you listen to the world, many times they have more principles of God in their functions than the church does. Why? Sometimes I wondered, why? Why are they doing what the church should be doing? Why? Because I believe inside of them they have this life that God gave, and it's drawing them. And sometimes we think we can do it a different way, but rather than listening to Him, we think we're doing right, but sometimes they're doing things which we can't. The Scripture says He's placed this in every man, and every man knows. I lived in Indonesia. There was one of the missionaries that was there who had gone to one of the outer islands where there had never been a white man go before. No one had ever taken the gospel there. And he had to go there and stay some time in order to begin to communicate, because the language was different. Indonesia has many, many languages, much like the Philippines, only theirs are much more distinct. And after he was there for a while, he began to see things, and he began to wonder what's going on. But it came to a point where he could begin to communicate to a degree, and he found out they were worshiping a God that they didn't know, a God that created all things that are in the world, the trees, the sun, the moon, the stars. They knew that there was a God. They didn't know who it was, but they knew there was a God. Why? Because in every man that spirit is there. Doesn't matter who they are, doesn't matter how they were born. They could be born an atheist, they could be born a Muslim, they could be born, it doesn't matter. You can just go right down the list. But within them, that spirit is there to know God. And so they put gods that they don't know. They make their own gods because they know there should be a God. There is, because God has done this. And in our lives, this is what we need to grasp and understand. We need to know Him and know what He has done. Remember, from the very beginning, He was. He wasn't created. He didn't just, okay, let's make a God. No, He was there from the very beginning. This word was so perfect in heart, soul, and mind, so perfect that God was able to create all that He has put together. It was perfect. How many times I've mentioned the perfection of God? God has created all of this in perfection. The sun hanging there in the midair. For how many generations, how many years, we don't know. But that sun is still there and it's still burning. Why? Because it was put there in perfection. Tell me one thing, just one thing that man has created that is perfect, that has never failed. Tell me. You go to the store, you buy this appliance, you think, wow, now we're going to have something very nice, and you use it for a little bit and it collapses. You have to go buy another one. You buy a car, and pretty soon it's in the garage. Something's wrong with it. But what God has done does not fail. Perfect. And what He has done in your life, it's perfection. If only you believe. If only you believe. We've allowed other things to come in. And because of that, that's why we have lost that from Him. But of His fullness, the total sum of all that He is, for of His fullness we have received, and grace upon grace. Have I received it? He's given it, but I don't know all of it. Lack of knowledge, lack of understanding. He's given to us everything that He is. Of His fullness we have received, and grace upon grace. Not only given us these things, but given us the ability to use them. If only we would understand. If only we would believe. He destroyed darkness, and He destroyed its power. But we've allowed the power to keep going. We've allowed the darkness to keep shining. Not because He failed, but because we have failed to fulfill His purpose in our lives. And this is what John wanted us to understand. This first chapter of John is so powerful, so awesome. I thought, there's no way I can talk about this in one Sunday. There's no way. Because just the first verse is such an awesome thing. In the beginning was the Word. In the beginning was the Word. Already it was there. The plans, everything was already there from the beginning. Whatever it began, whatever, who knows where the beginning is? You can't. We say beginning, but we don't know what that means. But even before that, He already had the plans. The Word was there. It didn't just come up, well, let's do something. No, it was there. This was His purpose in existence. So awesome, God. I'll go on and on and on, because it's just, to me, it's so awesome to realize this is our God. He's not a little guy that got elected in an election. He was not a king that was born into a family. No, He was. He was. He created everything. Nothing exists that He did not create. Nothing. Better leave that there, because we can get into trouble talking about that. But God sent His Son, the one who was excellent in creation, one who was excellent in life-giving, one who brought light. This is the Son that He sent to us, so that we would have that same hope in us, creating us in His image and His likeness. That's who you are.
Let us now profess the foundation of our faith as we sing the 19th hymn.